Hello and welcome to the Bonus Points podcast. I am your host, Joe Garrett, as always being joined by Ollie Guy.
Hello.
How are you feeling about this one, Ollie?
It's a lot to unpack, isn't there? It's going to be a lot to talk. I don't really know how it's going to go or where we're going to start.
Well, that's my thing I got to work out. So the reason we're a bit nervous is we're doing a game called Killer7. And so right at the top of the show, huge warning, this is an extremely adult game, you know, like more adult than any game, more mature than any game we've done, and we've done The Last of Us.
Disco Elysium.
So this is just a warning. Like, obviously, you know, we're not going to be showing in the video podcast any of the worst stuff, but we will be discussing it in depth. So just bear that in mind. It's kind of been the thing with the show anyway, is that, you know, we won't personally swear and we won't show the worst stuff, but we will kind of discuss it, you know, and kind of say about, you know, what does it mean and why do we think it is the way it is. And we're going to get into it maybe a little bit later on. Maybe we'll talk about some of the fun stuff first, eh?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if we manage to get through Thai without swearing, I think we're good for the future as well. So I just thought.
Right, so this was your choice, right?
Yep.
I kind of forget because this is a game that we both played when we were younger. So I think we might have been another one we both had on our list for a game to do on the podcast. So do you want to kind of just set up what this game is?
So first of all, it came out ages ago when we were younger, 2005, but we both... I don't know, did you play the Steam version?
No, well, this time.
Okay, So we both played the newer version. Okay, so the Wikipedia intro is... Killer7 is a 2005 action-adventure game developed by Grasshopper Manufacture and Capcom Production Studio 4. It was published by Capcom for the GameCube and the PS2. The game was written and directed by Goichi Suda and produced by Hiroyuki Kobayashi.
You're doing great, Ollie.
Thank you. That's as much as the intro goes into, so we're on our own from here.
No, I just say with the name pronunciations.
I try.
So that's kind of a sum up for, like, I guess, like the release and stuff. But I guess I think you would probably explain this better than me. Can you just explain let's do gameplay first, like the key hook, like how is the game controlled, what the setup is?
So the game is kind of like a point and click adventure game, kind of like a Resident Evil game, because you kind of can only go to places that are of interest and you have to find objects and put them in places. That's half of the game. And then the other half of the game is like a shooting gallery, like a light gun game. Yeah. That's kind of the two sides of and you have like different characters that you can change into that have like different abilities, but that's kind of the crux of the game is what you're doing.
I think a nice way to explain it is, you know, almost like a ride at a park, and say like you're going through like a scene and there's only one line like the cart will go through. Mm-hmm. That's what it's like. So it's open world in terms of, well, not open world, but open level, I guess. Yeah. So you can go where you want, you can go to different rooms, like you can turn around and go back the other way, but you always walk the exact same route through the room, which is why it then becomes like a light gun game or a shooting gallery, because if an enemy's walking at you, you can't dodge it, you can't sidestep it, you know, you got to shoot it or run away, basically. Yeah,
you're basically always moving along a track, and you're choosing at these different junctions which way you want to go, left or right, which was like, at the time, completely unheard of, and probably still completely unheard of.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't think of anything like it. I mean, it works great because it doesn't really limit your freedom to explore, because you can still go where you want, and it means like you can't cheese the enemies, you can't just step away, you know. It kind of adds a bit more tension, because the camera as well, it doesn't just stay kind of behind you in standard third person camera.
Not at all.
Because you're always going in the same way, they can kind of experiment, and sometimes the camera will be facing you, sometimes, you know, from like a weird angle.
It spends a lot of time down by your feet.
Yeah, super low angle, kind of like looking up at the character. I did find that it kind of made it a little bit harder to kind of get your bearings. Did you find that?
Well, I thought I would, but this time around I didn't at all. And then I only found out after I finished it there's a map.
Yeah, and like, it's not great.
I didn't get lost once, so I was like...
Yeah.
So I was quite
used
surprised.
The map a few times,
yeah,
but it would only show like sections in terms of like loading zones. So it'd be like you're in this whole. It's like you are here, and it's like a whole giant section. It's like, well, wait, where? Because I need to know whether I need to turn left or right. But because it's sometimes you'll enter a room, the camera will be on one side, you come out, it'll be on the other. But sometimes I'm like, oh wait, which way have I already been and which way do I need to go?
Oh, okay,
because
yeah.
the levels will look quite similar as well.
But the track choosing, the way that it changes colour if you've been that way, that's what I use most of my... That's how I mostly found my way around.
I didn't realise that.
It goes blue if you've been that way already. So I'd be like, last time I was here, I went left.
I found that out.
I'm going to go right this time.
I really wish I knew that. That would have probably saved me a lot of time. Then again, the levels are small enough that like there's a lot of times I'd feel overwhelmed with like options. I'd get to like a fork in the road and I'd be like, you can go here, 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 or here. And I'd be like, I'll go this way. And then I get to another fork in the road. I'd be like, oh my God, there's so many options. And then you go back and it's like, one's the save room, one's a guy that's going to chat to you. And it's like, oh, okay, it's not as expansive. I think just for audio listeners, do you want to kind of summarize the art style, like the visual style of the game?
Well, first of all, it looks absolutely great. Considering it came out in 2005, I can't believe it looks as good as it does. I mean, to be fair, I was playing in 4K, but like, because it's so stylized, it's not really aged at all.
No.
It kind of looks like a much simpler, flat shaded version of like, I sort of want to say Fortnite. Like the character models kind of give me that vibe, but like with none of the soft lighting or anything. But like their proportions and the way they look, it's quite Fortnite.
Really? I think that was just like they didn't have many polygons to work with.
They weren't doing it on purpose, but because it doesn't try and look realistic, it.
And then like the colours would be quite flat, so it would be like you'd see like a wall and a ceiling, but there'd be just like one gradient that might be like red to white or something, and it's not set. It's not like, oh, they've put this gradient on the wall. It's kind of over the whole screen. So if you move up and down, so say if you go up in an elevator, the elevator will move up, but the gradient will stay there. Super hard to explain. If you are on the audio version, like just look up a bit of gameplay. Just quickly Google a screenshot, and it will make it all clear.
If it wasn't if it wasn't on tracks, it would be absolute hell to navigate.
Yeah,
it's on tracks, so it's okay.
And then, you kind of mentioned, so you kind of play as this kind of 7 different killers that you play as. Most of them you can kind of switch between at will as you're going through, and they all kind of have their own kind of different style and different weapons and a few unique abilities.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, like, how are we going to possibly tackle this game? Like, it's so much going on, isn't there? So, there's seven characters you can play as. You can pick from 6 of them at any time. And then if you die, you get access to the 7th one, who's like the reviver. So he'll come out.
So you can switch to them if you go back to the room whenever you want.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but they're just not very good.
No point. Yeah, there's no point.
You can't level them up. It's actually a really cool mechanic because it's a Garcian, isn't it? The cleaner. So basically, if you die as a character, there's kind of just like a little bloody bag.
Yeah, that moves. That shakes.
And then you have to go back to Garcian to kind of collect them, and then you can like revive them. And I think that's a great mechanic because Garcian's quite weak, so it's quite nerve-wracking because you only fail if Garcian dies, but all the others can kind of keep dying. And because this predates Dark Souls, and every week I got to mention it, but that's kind of Dark Souls thing is where you die and you leave your souls, and then you got the tension of getting back there.
Yeah,
it's actually really similar to that, and I think I really like that mechanic.
Did you fully die at all?
Yeah, I did once.
Okay.
I think in the school level, I felt. You know, when there's those the
planes.
There's those guys that like fly at you.
Planes.
They're horrible.
Yeah, I basically at that point I was just using the Masks character, Masks Dude Smith, who's got the grenade launchers. Because I was like, so there's basically a character in it who's got grenade launchers that can pretty much instant kill anything, but you don't get any experience points if you use him because he doesn't collect the blood. But at that point, I knew I was near the end, so I was like, I'll just use it. It doesn't matter, I already leveled up.
Con's actually very good for them as well. These the guy's kind of got 2 almost like machine gun pistols, like he can shoot really, really rapidly, and you can kind of just spray. And I boosted, because he shoots so fast, I boosted his power right up to the very top.
Oh, nice.
So he was probably my most used, also because he runs around really fast. So it's just nice for navigating.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite killer?
Yeah, so Dan was my main guy.
I knew it'd be Dan
because he's the main guy.
Just because he's cool.
He's so cool. And then
when decide for the cool ones.
When he dies, I went to Coyote because he's cool.
Yeah.
And then they were kind of fine. But like if I needed to, I would change to Con or Kite. The only one I didn't really use was Kevin because he's like weird.
Yeah.
He was a little weirdo.
He throws like throwing knives, but it just doesn't like the shooting's quite satisfying for a lot of the other characters. But for him, like his little throwing knives, it's just like just like there's no impact at all.
Speaking of the shooting, can I say something controversial? I think it's going to be controversial. So back when I played this game back in the day, I remember like the pacing was pretty bad. There were so many load screens, it was horrible, and the shooting was like really fiddly. But like I kind of went for it because I was like a teenager and I was like, this is really edgy and really cool. But actually playing it now on a PC, on an SSD, like the pacing is so much better because everything loads instantly and the shooting is super easy because you have a mouse. So I feel like the PC port is so much better than the original game. And so the shooting is like, I actually love the shooting now. Whereas before I just did it because it was part of the game. Whereas now I'm like, any reason to shoot enemies, I was trying to find it.
So before I go into like the controls and the shooting, for this loading fast thing, I noticed that every time I went to save the game, there was a screen that like flashed up. And I was like, because of what this game is, I was like, oh, it's like a little secret Easter egg thing or like some like viral advertising thing or something. Yeah. And then I realized I looked back at my footage because I record it and like freeze the frame, it pops up. And it's a message saying like, don't remove your memory card because we're saving. I was like, that's obviously meant to be on screen for a while. And
it's a picture of a grasshopper like laying down, isn't it?
Yeah.
I remember it from the original. But it's funny you mentioned that because when I was saving it, I was like, it's interesting that they've left this in.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's part of it, is you have to go through this process, otherwise they would have just taken it out. Because they did make some changes between between the original and the port. So like stuff like you can change character without pausing it is like new and so much better and so much faster.
Without going back to the room, do you?
No, without pressing tab and opening the pause menu.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know. How do you switch characters?
Just the number keys, like changing gun.
Okay, well this is the time to go back to controls then. So I played with a controller.
Oh, mate. It's so much better on keyboard. So you basically have like Quake. You just change your guns and it's really fast because there's no like loading. So it just goes like poof, poof, and you're back to the correct guy. You just press H to heal. So you don't have to open the menu for that.
Okay. Well, you don't have to open the menu for controller either.
Oh, do you not?
At least on this version. Maybe in the original you had to.
Yeah.
But
so you just tap H and it heals you. And then I also found using WASD to move was like, for some reason in my head, way easier than using the controller. And also holding down the mouse button makes you run forward and right click and turns you around. So it's
I didn't consider. I think it's because I was like, because I own this game on PS2, and I was in between. Like, do I do the classic? And in the end, I was like, you know what? I'll do the new one. If nothing else, it will be for like the footage in the podcast will look nicer. And so I never even kind of considered using mouse and keyboard, but I did have to. Like, I scrapped the default controls for controller. So, do you remember what the controls were? Like, do you remember what's the shoot button?
I think it was like probably like square or something. Like R1 brings your gun up, square shoots, X runs, probably something like that.
So it's X is run and shoot,
right?
And then what do you use to aim?
I don't know. R1 to bring your gun up?
No, just to aim, literally to aim.
Probably
like
the left stick.
Yeah, the left analog stick.
Yeah. Well,
like
it's a GameCube game. The right analog stick was rubbish.
Yeah, I played the PlayStation 2 port. They could have, and that's what I couldn't handle. I was like, I couldn't handle like aiming with the left analog stick, so I changed it to the right, and then I had just left trigger aim in, right trigger shoot. But then that meant that I was then moving with the right stick, which was tricky and annoying, and running with right trigger.
Oh my god, what? Yeah, mate, you should have just used the default controls. It's so much easier.
No, honestly, I tried. So any footage of the first few levels, I will look absolutely awful at the game. I promise you, I was either struggling with default controls, or trying to relearn the new controls.
Well, the thing is like with the keyboard controls, it's like there's certain sections where you have multiple enemies in a row, and they'll be better for different characters. And because it's so easy on mouse and keyboard, you'll literally be like, okay, press 2, get this guy out, 1 shot, kill. Press 4, change to this guy, 1 shot, kill. And then
surely it still does the whole thing where the blood goes boom, and then they come back in.
Yeah,
right?
But it's so quick. So it's like, you know, but it's probably as quick as you're imagining, like with no gap in the middle. It's just like
yeah. That would be so cool for a sequel if they really speed, like almost make it instant. So instead of like switching weapons, you're switching killers.
Yeah, and the other thing is, cool. I don't know about on controller, but on keyboard, E was counterattack.
Okay.
So once they get close to you, you just mash the E key, and then as soon as they get too close, it'll counter them.
I said that as the X button, so I
Okay.
had that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would, no, like the controls. Well, after I changed them, I was fine with them. Obviously, just my aiming would be less precise, but like they balanced it for analog aiming. So did you find it too easy?
I think it was probably too easy, but at the same time, I think originally it was too fiddly. So it wasn't quite perfect, but it was. I'd rather be it was too easy than too fiddly. So.
And it is still a bit fiddly now, just for like I feel like turning round when you haven't got momentum's a bit too slow. And sometimes when like I always find it annoying when you hear like, so basically the enemies are all invisible, as we should probably mention that, until you do like a scan. And so the way you know there's someone there is you hear like a laugh from one of the enemies, then you'd normally get up your gun, you'd scan to see them. And sometimes that would happen, but they'd be like around a corner.
Oh, mate, that's the
Like,
worst.
I'm like, oh, am I going to have to wait here for them? I'm like, no, I'm just going to risk it and go round. And then like they surprise you, like that kind of stuff. I just feel, I feel like the enemy placement and some of the design isn't as thoughtful as it could be. And then also the fact that the enemies kind of respawn in the same place again and again, and sometimes when you're going back and forth, and it's like, okay, let me just wait for a bit for these two guys to spawn so I can kill them, then I can just carry on. Like it loses the tension and the excitement sometimes.
Yeah, I 100% agree. But I did find a few places that were like, if you have to backtrack through this area, if you quickly pop into this room and then come back out, the enemies won't appear. So sometimes I would just do that because obviously it's so much quicker than it used to. Whereas it used to be like, you'd sit there for like 15 seconds, this blue screen, like waiting for it to load. But now it's just like super fast.
You can just kind of do it. And I did get to the point where I was like, oh, I know they're going to spawn there. I know I can get to where I need to go. So they'd be like, like laughing at me. And I'd be like, nope. And I'd just run away and just be like, no, not doing it.
Considering how many times you've heard those laughs, that was a rubbish impression.
I got you. If you do an impression, I might be able to copy it. But
they're like...
Oh yeah, that's much better.
And my favourite laugh in the game is the one where it counts how many enemies you've killed, and like it ticks up. And if the number gets like over 100, the heaven smile laugh is like,
oh yeah, he's really funny. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get on to like the let's get to kind of like the story, I guess, and kind of like the dialogue and the kind of the tone. There's a lot of dialogue in this game. We've kind of spoke about the action. Yeah, go ahead, Ollie. Good luck.
So, I absolutely loved. I'm just gonna say now, I absolutely love this game. This time round, I was like, this is unbelievable. And to be honest, a big part of that was the story. So there's basically, from what I can tell from playing the game. And like, I did have to look up what one word meant because it's not in English. I was like, I kind of understood what was going on. So there's basically 4 stories in this game that all run concurrently. So I'll go through this really quickly. You have like the character story, which is like the Killer7 team and like their backgrounds and people they've interacted with and been killed by. Then you have like this like politics story, which is like the 4 powers, which are obviously like Africa, America, Europe, and Asia, and they're kind of sending the Killer7 on their mission, so they're kind of intertwined, and they're trying to get power over this thing called the Yakumo that I had to look up what that meant because it's not in English, which is basically the power to control people's free will. So that's like another story level. And then the highest story level, I guess, so actually there's only 3, is there's these 2 like cosmic level gods who are kind of playing a game of chess, and the whole thing is kind of their game, their like battle, because like the bad guy's got the power to create these enemies called Heaven Smiles who are like terrorists, and the good guy has got the power to destroy them. But neither of them seem to really care. So like,
yeah, and that's kind of that's Harmon, isn't it? The guy in the wheelchair, who is he's one of the Killer7, is he, or is he?
Well,
he's number 1, right?
So
I get.
Yeah, it turns out.
I guess let's not get to the ending, but like the setup.
So there's that, but then there's all these other things like, what is it like to be a killer? Like everyone that you kill in the game is like attached to you forever, so you'll always see their ghost, and they'll always be bothering you, or they'll be like, "Oh, thank God you killed me because I actually wanted to die, so that's good," or like, I had another one. I've completely forgotten it. But anyway, there's all these like different themes that are like going on that are like, there's just a lot happening.
Yeah, and then it's set up because it's like it's set in the future, and there's basically been like world peace. Everyone's like kind of almost signed a treaty.
Well, it's like world peace because it's actually quite
well, there was
rubbish,
a few years of it, and then like. Because everyone was so peaceful, then like these terrorists came, and then like there wasn't many people that could deal with them. So then that's when Killer7 are kind of called in to, most of your missions they're assassinations. It's your mission is you got to kill this certain person. Yeah, is the setup.
And you only see all of the UN leaders once, and they're like all egging each other on. It's when they're playing mahjong.
Yeah,
and it actually turns out they all shoot each other, which I kind of feel like they're trying to say something there as well. Like the whole thing was just like. I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's not the most subtle.
No, but it's just like there's so much going on that's like, and some of the writing is just absolutely amazing. Like some of the lines are like I can't like they're so good, they're so well written. Like the big final line in the game, which we'll get to, was like just so clever. I was like,
do you have any other kind of examples or like funny quotes or particular characters that you really enjoyed?
So Dan, who's like the cool guy. He has like quite a few cool lines, but one of them is that he meets his old master, like because he was an apprentice assassin, and his master's is like, "Oh yeah, you look awful, like you've grown up or something like that. You've got so old." And he's like, "Yeah, I went to visit the devil, and now it's your turn." And I literally was like, which is the Curtis Blackburn fight. I was like, that is so good, so good. And in the ending, it's not really a spoiler, but the ending, you kind of replay what happened at the beginning, where you shoot the guy in the hand. Yeah. And then he says the world doesn't change, it only turns. And I was like, that is so clever.
I did. So I think you enjoyed the writing more than me by the sounds of it. That line at the end, I thought that was particularly cool. And also, so like when you say you shoot him his hand, basically you got this giant like Barrett sniper rifle, whatever, and you shoot it, and he like grabs it and like it launches him across the city, and he lands on a roof. So it's like that line is after that moment, which makes it is particularly cool. Yeah. I didn't rate the voice acting for a lot of the scenes. Yeah,
which is weird because as far as I could tell from watching the credits, there's quite a lot of now famous people in it. Yeah. So I was like, maybe this was their first ever job.
or the direction, maybe it wasn't. They didn't get the right direction, or they were phoning it in. Yeah, like I bet it wasn't a big project for them. This unknown new, IP.
The sound mixing was awful as well. Like, there's a few scenes where you can't even. If it wasn't for the subtitles, you'd have no idea what they're saying. They're just like mumbling.
Well, yeah, but I turned subtitles off because I'm like, I got to edit this video. I don't want to spend like a whole day blurring out words
right,
in the subtitles. Yeah. But the majority of the game isn't subtitled, but there is voice acting in a way. So do you know how do they create the voices of like the in-game characters, like the ones? I
think the ghosts. So you speak to these ghosts that kind of speak in this like otherworldly way, and I think it was something like they translated it 5 times, and then like back to English. Or something, so every so often you'd get like an English word would come through.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Because I'm like, first I was like, oh, they couldn't, this is too much dialogue. They couldn't afford to do the voice acting. And then I was like, wait, are they playing it backwards or something? Then I was like, wait, some of it, like it all sounds like it fits in with what they're saying. Like, are they just like editing it? Like, because it feels like that's too much effort to record the dialogue and then not use it. It's
originally,
so weird.
They recorded it entirely in Japan, but everyone spoke English. And then when they brought it over, they were like, we can't release this because like all the voices were like so bad.
They're just so bad.
They're like, we can't release it like that.
Yeah, but they're creepy. Some of them are like really creepy.
Like the sound design, except for the fact the mastering is a bit like all over the place. Like the sound design, I think throughout is like really good. Like the laughing at this point, I think like to me it's like iconic. Like that is a great sound effect. The music is really good. Like what you hear of it is all pretty upbeat.
For me, it's the when you kill them, when they explode and like that, like when you're collecting the blood. That is great. And I've heard it a lot.
I was playing like full volume every time I played it. I was like turning it right up. Yeah. And obviously the lines that you say when you kill them and all that. Like, mate, it's so good. I literally loved it so much. And then the whole thing with the story, I feel like when I played it when I was younger, I didn't really get it, but I was like, okay, well, it's cool. So I'll just stick with it.
I think that like I'm glad I was doing it for the podcast because I was really trying to like pay attention way more because I was like, I want to make sure I fully understand it, but. I think it did. You were saying about the pacing being improved with loading. I think there's too much talking, and it hurts. Like when you're trying to explore and battle and stuff, especially like early on. Remember the first level? I was like, literally, like I'm trying to get into this game, and it's probably about every 15 to 20 seconds.
Yeah.
There's like a 30 seconds someone like talking at me.
They almost don't want to let you go for it. Like a lot of the puzzles as well, they just tell you what to do. They're like, "Oh,
It's
use
ridiculous.
the barefoot character." And it's like, was it one of them?
Well,
It's not that hard.
there was a puzzle, okay, where there was like a candelabra and like 5 numbers, and you got to I think you got to light them in an order or something, and then there's someone in the room who's like, you talk to them, and they're the guy's like, "Hi, I'm like the information giver," and then they tell you how to do the puzzle, and then they're like, if you need more information, like I can give you more information, like shoot my mask and you can buy more information. Then they just tell you exactly what to do, and then the answer to the puzzle was you light the candles in order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. And I'm like,
that's funny because I got stuck on that because I was like, there's no way that's the answer.
I did it, and I was like, I'll just check it. Like, surely it's not this. Surely there's a wall somewhere with it written on. And I was like, I'll just try it, and then. That's about as deep as the puzzle game. There was loads of moments where it's like, it'd be like, oh, there's another one. There's a candle. He's got to light it. Or it'd be like, you get the time ring. And then if you find a clock, it's like, oh, what do I do here? I just use the... it's literally like, the kids game where you have like a shape outline and then like a shape and you got to put in. It's literally that in video game form.
That guy, the hint giving guy as well, like he does absolutely rinse you if you ask one for one of his hints. Did you ask him for any of them?
No, I never did.
So he just basically like stands there flipping you off and he's like, "You are the biggest loser I've ever met in my life. I can't believe you don't know how to do this." Yeah, and he's like, loads of people come through here, they all know how to do it. I can't believe you don't know how to do it. And then he's just like, he tells you how to do it and it just ends. And it's like, oh.
Yeah. There was one bit where I thought they were doing a good puzzle. And then I actually accidentally came up with a better puzzle for them by trying it. There's a bit where in the hotel, there's a bathtub. And then, like, you got to get something out of it, but there's a hairdryer that's plugged in inside, and it would electrocute you. And I was like, "Oh, which ring do I need for this puzzle?" And I was like, maybe if I use the time ring, it's stopping the flow of electricity, and then I can get. I was like, that'd be. Then I was like, "Oh no, you just have to shoot the cable of the hairdryer."
I think there was. I think there was one puzzle in the game, or one time you needed outside information potentially, unless I missed the clue, which is when you have to do the guy's blood type. And then I worked it out based on what his parents were. But apart from that,
I just did the other blood type. I've got my there's one bit you got to like put in loads of information. I've got my whiteboard here. There's the video. Did you have to just write it all down?
I was just taking pictures on my phone. Yeah, I was taking pictures of all the little subtitles that popped up.
There's a few moments like that where it's just memory game. I think the closest one to an actual decent puzzle is there's one where it's like these transforming robots.
Yeah.
And you need to kind of, just because there's a little bit of a puzzle for working out which robot is which symbol is a very like that. That was the closest to an actual puzzle, but a lot of the levels are like a long task of collecting loads of a thing. And I think that framing it in that way, like collect 10 of these figures or collect 20 color swabs or whatever it is.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah, the colors. I missed the second one of those, but luckily,
really? So I don't think you need all of them, do you? I think you just need enough to make the colors or something.
No, you need all of them because I missed one.
Oh really?
Yeah, because you basically each one has a different value attached to it, and you have to put the code, like the values in. So that's what's happening. But luckily, when you get to the end of that level, in that level, there's like these weird gates, and they're like, "Oh, what a strange flame!" Did you see those?
Yeah, and then you can go back to places you're being.
Yeah, so that's the fast travel, and they added it for that one level because they knew people like me would miss the things I needed.
Yeah, that was one of the levels that was pretty hard to navigate. It was all just white walls, and
that was actually
all the same.
That was actually my least favorite level, which like it has a cool boss fight. But I really feel like it does that thing that I'm starting to... From being on this podcast, I've realised that I've got a pet peeve for games that, like, you're heading towards the end, then you have to divert and do something, and then carry on the story. And I feel like that level was that for this game. It's like Killer7 go on holiday. So you're, like, kind of doing all this stuff, and it's like, oh, it's actually a comic book writer in the Dominican Republic. We need you to go and speak to him and, like, kill him, and then you can come back. And it's like, oh, okay. Like... Just trying to get it over and done with as quickly as I could. So
I feel like a lot of the missions were like that, though. It was the same with the like the desert town as well, like the Texas. Was it in Texas? I think.
Yeah.
That level was similar. It didn't seem too closely tied into the rest of the plot.
Well, he is like a cult leader who found a page of the Yakumo. That's what I had to look up because I was like, "What is this Yakumo?" And it's so he could learn sort of how to manipulate people. And going to that town, you could see the effect of the Yakumo because everyone there was absolutely mad about him. and that's what all of the countries were kind of fighting over. But also, like, there was quite a few things in it that are like it predicted that have sort of happened. Like so he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to inject myself with every virus to prove that I can get over it." And like, do you remember when the pandemic happened and they were like going to inject someone on TV or something? I was like, "This is crazy."
I don't remember the real life version of that. But...
Or like the thing with the comic book series. And they were like, "Oh yeah, Electro and Line are a massive entertainment conglomerate and they're trying to buy up every comic book hero." And I was like, "It's just Disney. It's literally Disney."
Well, and a lot of it just hasn't aged. Like things like some of the way the characters speak. Like there's the severed ladies' heads that you find that you get the rings from.
Little Susie, yeah.
Little Susie, yeah. Like a lot of her dialogue seems like because obviously it was trying to be like almost like modern, kind of almost teenagery of the day.
Yeah.
But the way they've done it, some of the writing is like just really feels very modern. So it doesn't feel like cringy old young. Like it still kind of holds up in a weird, horrible way.
Yeah, and she speaks of like emojis.
Yeah,
it's probably what makes it look really young. Because
I think that's what it is. Maybe people haven't changed that much. That's what it is. There's also, it's weird because for the first few levels there isn't, but starting from that Texas level, there's some like folly, like hand drawn, like anime style, like animated cutscenes, which didn't get the remaster treatment. No, like the rest of the game. I
assume those original files are long gone. Like,
yeah, it's so sad. Like that original artwork. They obviously,
well, they kind of they had two different styles, didn't they? They had the like full on anime, the handsome men style, and then they also had that weird. That was like kind of like the Gorillaz band style for that Almeida level, which like was pretty unique. But I do think that the handsome men cutscenes were much better. Yeah, they were super action packed. Yeah. Also the handsome men thing. Like I know I say this about every media property ever, but like I feel like that whole thing was just like a metaphor for the game, because like it's about a guy who can write about these 7 heroes who can change like the course of history or whatever, and it's literally like that's what's happening in the game. Like the guy's written it, and it's like, well, what happens if the director leaves or is killed before it's finished? And then that's what happens to the guy. I just kind of felt like there was something there that was like, it's possibly so similar, it must be. And
then the fact that the handsome men, they're all like counterparts to the Killer7 as well.
Yeah.
Like it's all like, it's, you know, there's like they all line up, you know, in terms of, you know, there's one of each side of them.
Yeah.
Right. Shall we kind of get into some of the, so there was some controversy when the game came out.
Yes.
I wasn't really aware of it at the time. I think if the game was more popular, I think there would have been more controversy. I think it was like people weren't happy about it, but it wasn't like GTA. Like no one was really talking about it apart from people like us. So let's kind of, before we kind of talk about any kind of the like sexualization stuff, let's kind of just talk about like the violence. Compared to like modern games, did it seem like more violent, or did it seem different?
I feel like it's kind of hard, but I feel like the violence, while it didn't look as bad as modern gore or anything like that, the context around it always made it worse.
Yeah.
So like, there's a big scene where this guy's basically killed this guy's family, and he's telling them, "Oh yeah, I killed
the squash court."
Yeah, and it is like awful. Like it's horrible to watch now. And like, it's obviously what they're going for, but it's like, how did this come out in 2005? And the other thing that like I found genuinely upsetting was like the like elder abuse angle, where like Harmon was obviously having a horrible time, and you can hear him like screaming in the next room. And like every time I was in that trailer, I was like, I've got to get out because I can't listen to it. It's just so
it's like someone who's meant to be like his carer, basically. Like
just beating him up,
abusing him.
Yeah. And it's like, so there's like child abuse, elder abuse, like sexual abuse, like pretty much they covered pretty much all the things that you don't want to look at in one game. And
like when I was going into it, I was expecting like over the top Hollywood violence and like gore, and like that was what my memory was. But like I feel like the game almost like revels in the horribleness of it. It's almost like as if the game's excited about like, oh, what's like could be super nasty, and loads of moments of like going into a public place and like shooting civilians, like people behind reception desks, and you know, people that are scared running away. And I think maybe it's just modern times and just how many shootings there have been in real life recently. I feel like that stuff almost hurts or like hits stronger more now than it probably would have done at the time, when obviously that stuff was happening in real life, maybe not as much, but I was a young kid and probably not very aware of it and not really watching the news. And
there's that bit where you basically watch it in first person when he goes to the immigration offices and he basically shoots it up, and it's like, this is horrible. Like, I get that they're trying to make him out to be bad, but it's also almost like that bit in that old Call of Duty game where you had to play as a terrorist. Yeah. And I remember at the time saying to someone, one of my friends, like, I don't have to be a terrorist to understand how bad it is. But like, this game is almost like really pushing the envelope on what... I mean, I can't even believe it came out. Like, some of the stuff in it is unbelievable.
It's hard to describe words, but do you feel like almost as if, I don't want to go as far as like, Suda51 like this, but like the game almost seems like excited about it, or like almost like the game's enjoying it. Or
so it's interesting you bring that up, because one of the things that Suda51
like, it makes it look cool. Maybe that's what it is. It's not like, here's a disgusting thing and like, let's have the music, and then it's like it almost seems like it's not celebrating it. That would be probably be too far, but it seems like on board with how horrible it is, and kind of like, you know, like, look at this. Yeah,
it's so Suda51 said something, I don't have the quote, but he said something along the lines of, you know, Iwazaru, like the main ghost, the red ghost in the like sadomasochist bondage outfit. Course, yeah. He's like a masked deviant, and there's a reason that he's your guide. It's basically what he said. Like, he's basically saying like, yeah, if you wear a mask, you can do pretty much whatever you want. And like, so you have this like bondage guy with you, and then also the fact that Harmon is hiding behind 6 other people. It's kind of like saying like, oh, well, let's go and really go to the extremes of what we can, and you're going to be laughing while you do it, because like everyone in the game is laughing and smiling. Like, it is quite a lot. I did find, like, I was thinking about it all the time when I wasn't playing it. I was like, it is like affecting me, but I did still think it was absolutely amazing. But I was like, man, back in the day, I just thought this was really cool, and now I'm like, oh my god, it's horrible.
Yeah, it's weird how it's, you know, because you think, oh, you know, and we weren't children, we were teenagers, you know.
Well, we were 14 when it came out.
Yeah, and then you think about like, oh, protect the kids from that content. At the time, like, it didn't affect me at all, and it's now only as, you know, an adult that like it did affect me. Like, it affected me more than it did back then. Yeah, you know, maybe we're just getting old, or
I do actually have a fact about that, which was, do you remember that guy that like tried to get Mortal Kombat banned? He was called like Jack Thompson. He was an American politician, and it was like video games causes violence was like this big thing. That was like, we talked about it when we did Doom. Okay, he was the guy that was like, look, there's Bill Gates wearing a trench coat. He's the main character of. Do you remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
This was the last game he ever tried to ban.
Okay. So
that was his last hurrah. Was like, he was like, how can you even give this an adults only rating, because it's so horrendous.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of side with him a little bit.
Yeah, and also like, it doesn't paint America in a very good light either. It really that's one of the makes other America big themes. Look stupid. Yeah,
I think that's one of the main themes. It's like East versus West, or, you know, like Japan versus America.
Yeah, so
it's one of the big themes.
Yeah, like tradition versus like modern times.
Yeah,
and there's that really good line in it where Garcian says to the guy like, "What is the United States?" And the guy says, "I don't know. I'm Japanese." I literally was like, That's just the director just saying that. Like, it's like in Inglourious Bastards when Brad Pitt's character right at the end says, "I think this might be my masterpiece." It's literally like him saying it. Like, he looks right at the camera and he's like, "I'm Japanese." He just walks off. It's like, oh my god. But yeah, also I think just quickly on that, like, America looking rubbish. Like, I do think that he does that same dance that Kojima does of being like on the political line, somewhat real, somewhat fake, but I actually feel like he does it a lot better than Kojima does it, because I had myself second guessing what people were saying a lot more. Then in Kojima, you're like, there's no way that's true, whereas in Killer7 I was like, is that true? Like, was every American president once a head teacher? And I was like, that can't be true. And the next line's like, oh, that's why so many schools are named after them. And I was like, is that true? Like, having to like look it up.
I feel like one of the things is that I feel like a lot of the characters are just saying like his views, and it kind of softens it. Like, they almost don't feel like their own. It feels like, okay, here's just like a little speech that like the director wants to spew and like put out their opinion.
1,000,000%.
And I think there's more Japanese auteur video game directors than there are Japanese video game auteur editors. I feel like they're like, don't hold him back. Don't be like, he doesn't need someone saying no, but there just needs to be someone like, we could cut out this, this one encounter. Like someone didn't like, they were having fun going through this level and stuff. Someone didn't need to pop up here. And to the point where for like some of the last levels, I was skipping some of the conversations, like just not talking to them.
Yeah.
And I think it was extra bad for the dialogue, because I was realizing, why am I struggling so much? Because I was kind of enjoying the dialogue just for the strangeness of it, and I was trying to really think into it, but I was like, why is it annoying me so much? And I realized it's because it's not voice actors, there's no dialogue, so you're reading the text, but you can't skip through each line. So I would read, there would be like just one line, like one sentence, it would be saying like, oh, like we're in trouble or something.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to wait for ages to the next line, then I'd read it, and then I'd always read it twice as fast than it goes through.
Yeah.
And if I could, read it all but go through at my own pace, then I think I would have just read it all. But it really killed the pacing for me.
I think the game probably needs to be about 20% shorter.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be as long as it is.
And do you know that they cut like a third of it before they released it?
They cut 2/3 of it.
Oh, 2/3.
So I watched an interview with Suda51. So he was the director.
And, I don't want to play that game.
And he was like, yeah, we originally had 3 hours of cutscenes, and now there's only 1 hour. And they said, well, why did you cut it out? And he said, this is such a stupid reason. But he was like, oh, I'm inspired by when someone says something to you, they're saying one thing, but the way they're saying it is something else. So he was like, I would basically cut out the way they were saying it. So you need to like learn through playing rather than have them explain it to you. I was thinking like, mate, 3 more hours of cutscenes.
I'm like, how much stuff is still left in and how things are so over-explained.
Yeah.
Like, I'd just be tempted to be like, does like budget or like time limits have anything to do with it maybe also? Or is it just your artistic vision?
Since this game came out, so it wasn't even a cult hit. It wasn't really a hit in any shape or form. A lot of people have accused the creator of like, when someone hits a bullseye, right? And you're like, oh, you nailed it. They've accused the creator of shooting a target, like shooting an arrow and then drawing a target around it. Because he's come out and explained quite a lot of this as like, oh, actually what I meant was. Whereas really, it's hard to know. I don't know.
It's almost like what J.K. Rowling's done, where she'll kind of come back out and be like, oh yeah, Dumbledore's gay. And I do have gay. It's like, well, it's not in the book. Like, it's, you can infer stuff or whatever, like say that you thought that all along. But I feel like that happens a lot. I mean, I think we speak about Twin Peaks a lot, and you say about your theories, and I feel like you're doing what you're describing when you talk about that and some of your theories where you can come up, I think and exist, you can come up with like that it's all a metaphor, and then you can go and cherry pick things where it fits and then seem like a genius.
But this, the same thing with, like Twin Peaks with this game, is I feel like it does like inspire you to be active. You're not just watching it. Yeah. Like you are part of trying to solve what's going on. And to be honest with you, I don't think political intrigue is that interesting a storyline. Like I don't care about politics. But the way it's presented and like this weird supernatural level to it is what kept me like hooked. I think it does have a very interesting hook. The thing is, well, that you can just play, and if you just want to go along for the ride, like you said at the beginning of a ride, you'd probably still have a pretty good time. Yeah. So
well, yeah, I mean, you would do if they didn't keep stopping you all the time and let you
can skip it. You can skip it.
Yeah, you can skip it, but then you feel guilty,
enough.
don't you?
Yeah, you feel guilty.
You don't like. I don't like doing it.
Yeah, it's not difficult enough to like. Have to. But it's all like I even read the files in this game. That's how deep I went into it. Like Johnny Gagnon, whatever his name was, the guy that kept writing to you.
Yeah. He's like the memos.
Yeah, he's like investigating you as you're playing. They were all quite cool as well. That's how I know all the characters' name. Yeah, I know all their names because I was reading those.
Can we chat about we talk about the violence? Can we talk about like the female characters and kind of the way females are represented in the game?
Yeah, so I feel like this director, his later games are much worse for sexism and objectifying. I feel like this game, it is bad, but it is always viewed through a lens of like this is bad and you shouldn't do it. Whereas in the later games, it's
I don't think it is. I think it's just outright bad here.
No, because it's like, oh, you shouldn't.
There's no self-awareness.
No, they're like, you shouldn't do it. Like, it's gross and like, but.
What about the scene, the Texas scene where you go into like, is it the drugstore? And they got that animated cutscene and like the person behind the counter. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, she's like leaning on the counter and her like boob is basically falling out.
Yeah, well, I think they cover every angle of her. They have like one. Obviously, they got the up camera, and they have like one female character you can play as.
Yeah,
who's like in the world's shortest skirt.
I think it's actually a towel, isn't it?
Oh, is it literally? Okay.
I think I don't know. From watching that scene where she dies, it kind of looks like she's in a state of undress because she's like running around like.
Bad. I mean, and then also she's like just such a less interesting character, and she's the only one. She like fumbles her reloads.
She fumbles her
sometimes,
yeah.
and it's like I don't like. I just feel like there's so many characters, like all of the female characters, and like they're all just sexualized, like every single one of them.
Yeah, there's definitely none of them.
There's no, and like the one that I can't even remember who she is, but like there's your new informant on the bridge.
Linda Vermillion.
And like the clothes that she's wearing, and like
I knew you were going to bring that up. It's like she looks like she's dressed like the boss from MGS3 with that entirely open front. Yeah, or
but
like
at least there's a bit
Eva.
of a metaphor of that being like a snake, isn't there? And
yeah.
Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, it is gross, and it's a product of its time as well. Like that was 2005. Things were different then, but it's not. I'm not saying it's good by any means.
Yeah.
But the only thing it has over his newer games is that in the newer games it's like, oh, look at the women and your points will go up. Whereas in this game it is like everything about this game is gross. Like there's nothing nice about it. Like in the context of the game, it's like, well, of course that's what's gonna happen. Yeah,
but it's also like, oh, of course it's like the men making the game and then the ones objectified are the women. It's not like it's not like, oh, it's fair they're being like it to everyone. Like the men aren't. Like the men are allowed to like be cool and have character, and they're the ones ruling the world and have the personalities.
Yeah,
that's
true. That's true.
Like it's still one-sided, and it's the side you expect because it's the side it always is.
Yeah.
I kind of want to bring back the curtain a bit for like what was meant to be. Was it meant to be our second podcast game? Was it No More Heroes?
No More Heroes 1, yeah.
So that was Ollie's pick for, instead of Onimusha, that was his original pick, and we started playing it to do it for the podcast, and that was so extreme, like what we were saying,
that was the game after this one, the same creator made after this one.
Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that. And in the end I messaged Ollie and I was like I'm not saying we can't do this. I was so careful because I was like, this was your first pick. I was like, I'm not saying I'm not doing it, but like this will be our second podcast. I don't know if we want to go out the gate with a game where it was really marring my enjoyment.
Yeah, but in my defense, I didn't pick it because of that, which is kind of sad. I basically picked it because I was like, what's the furthest from the Forgotten City we could ever get? And it was that. Yeah. And also, I think it just had a remaster, so I was like, great, let's do that. Yeah, but like, absolutely doesn't excuse it in any way, but I kind of feel like every way this game could be extreme, they've done it. And that is one of the ways it could be extreme, which is gross. And they fully went for it.
Yeah.
There's like, that was actually the reason that guy tried to get it banned, is because there's a full-on sex scene in it, which was mad for 2005 to have that in a game. Yeah, gross. But also, it's part of it. You can't ignore it, can you?
No, but then that's the thing. I couldn't ignore it, and it did it annoyed me so much. It was so just cringy, and because I like the things that I'm thinking, like all of the stuff that's cool and that I loved with the game. Like, I'm still just thinking, it's made by the same people as that other stuff, and it kind of almost like taints the entire package for me.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot. It's very Tarantino-esque as well. Like, a lot of it is like that, where it's just kind of like, oh,
yeah,
you didn't need to. Like, who's giving you the reign to do this and not taking it off of you?
Yeah, especially because from like the gameplay side of it. Like you're so we haven't really mentioned, you're kind of shooting like, they almost look like demons. They're called like Heaven Smiles. They're these things that have been created by what was the main guy on that side again? Kun Lan. So it's kind of created them. And they're like, they kind of explode sometimes in blood, but they're like, it's like shooting aliens or something, like it. The actual gameplay, that is so over the top. and the fact that it's like these kind of weird looking things, that's actually fine. Like the actual gameplay violence, you know, like if it was just that stuff, it might not have even got an 18.
But so the boss fights as well are also quite otherworldly, even though you're shooting people. Like there's that one where you and that woman are just shooting each other continuously.
And it's just counting who shot each other the most.
Shot who the most, yeah. Like that's obviously not realistic in any way.
Yeah.
So
did you enjoy any of the boss fights?
I feel like they were just there to serve a purpose, and like they just wanted to think of different things you could do with your gun, and the fact that you couldn't really move. So
that's the thing. You're basically, because you can't move and shoot, so you always just end up, you're in a position and you're just shooting at them. There's one where you got to shoot like the ceiling and something drops down. There's one is like a character that you can only damage her when she's in light, and then you just wait for her to go into the light, and then you shoot her
with a grenade.
Yeah, it's annoying because I always enjoyed the setup, and they kind of set up like, there's these two, you know, like assassins facing off against each other, and you feel like they're setting up a cool fight, and then just the gameplay can never back it up.
No, that's true. It can't. It kind of was like, I appreciate the variety in shooting, but you were still always just shooting. Yeah.
I think actually my favourite was the one you mentioned where it's Dan going against his mentor, and they kind of do almost like a old Western shootout, and there's like a bird on his shoulder, and they're like, when the bird flies away, you got to quick draw. Like that was a cool twist on it, I guess.
Yeah, I liked the one where you shoot the angel's wings off right at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's quite cool. Like, it's not something you see very often. So
the handsome men, so we kind of mentioned them a bit earlier. They're kind of almost like Power Rangers, I guess is a good way to describe it. Do you know what the deal is with that boss fight, how it works?
They just copy you exactly.
Yeah.
So
how do you win it?
You always win. It's always the same result.
It's just set up. Okay.
It's just set up to be the same result. And I think it was like I said of it being like, it's kind of like Killer7 Go on Holiday. It was a bit like, we're being published by Capcom, so let's do something Capcom-esque and make like a fighting game. And then they have the Capcom credits at the end as well.
Yeah.
Because it is just
like the fake credits.
Like even if you stop shooting, they'll stop shooting. If you lower your gun, they'll lower.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. Because at first I was like trying to quick draw them, and then I seemed to be losing when I felt like, I should have won that. And then I realized, is there like some clever thing? Like, do I need to like somehow shoot myself so they shoot themselves? I was like, is there like a clever puzzle? But no.
Also, sorry, go on.
No, please go ahead, because I was just going to get back to the puzzles.
How much does the director love Mask? Like, Mask? Yeah, the Mask guy, Mask Smith. He always gets everything. He's like, he levels up like 4 or 5 times. He's always meant, like the director loves like the Mask. No.
And I was like, where is there a connection?
No, Mask in the game, like pretty much the back half you just have to play as him loads because of all the enemies that like can only be killed by him. And they're like, now he's the main event. Like now he's this cool guy. And
yeah, you keep getting new masks with like these crazy
no
outfits.
one else gets anything
stuff
like that. It's just like,
and also one of the coolest bits where someone shoots him and he just headbutts the bullet.
Yeah. And also, I thought it was really interesting how his voice was like so soft. Yeah, that was obviously done on purpose. Like I know the direction of the voice isn't good, but like that was quite interesting. But also, I don't know. Like he's obviously meant to be dead, so I don't know. Because obviously they're all dead, right? That's the whole thing. That's the whole plot.
Yeah.
I've got, because we always talk about like how well it did. So I've taken the critical bit of Wikipedia, if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
From when it originally came out. It's 10 lines, so bear with me because I'm going to read it out. So it got 74 on Metacritic when it released, which like isn't great, isn't bad. It's kind of the worst because no one cares because it's like just good.
I bet it got a few much higher and a few much lower. I bet that like averaged out to that, but I bet it wasn't everyone giving it 7s.
Yeah. It should be funny, wouldn't it? Mate, the amount of times they rely on that in the game. Oh, God. Like, the missions are split up weirdly because they wanted to have 7. It's actually like 14. Okay, so Killer7 received divided reviews and sparked debates about depictions of sex and violence in video games and the status of video games as art. James Mielke from OneUp.com likened the game's high-contrast art style to noir and neo-noir filmmaking such as Seven. He found that despite poor pacing and stilted gameplay, the quirky scripting and edgy plot were strong draws, and called Killer7 one of the most artfully designed footnotes in gaming history. Which, like, I think that's a pretty cool quote.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave a little gap after all this so you can react. I want to get your reaction. Have you got a reaction to that? Okay. Edge Magazine's reviewers echoed this sentiment and predicted that the game would pave the way for future creative leeway, crediting the director with an unwavering artistic vision.
Yeah. That sounds... It was certainly unwavering. There was no compromise apart from those 2/3 that had to go.
Yeah, so this one is the one that I read, and I was like, that's the reason I brought this in, because I was like, that is so true. So Eurogamer Kristen Reed was keenly aware of the game's limited appeal, calling it a concept game, an art house game, a simple game, an often beautiful game, but most certainly never an everyman's game. And I was like, that is bang on. Like, you've literally nailed it with that.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, I don't think it's a game where it's like you'll hate it or you'll love it. Because I'm right in the middle. Like, there's bits that I loved, and I'm like, this is cool. Like, I want more games to be weird and taking risks and doing unique things. Like, this is everything that I love. But then also, I'm like, God, imagine if they did this, but with like good puzzles. Like, imagine if it was like even like Resident Evil level puzzles, which aren't great puzzles, but they're better than this. Like something I put a bit of thought into. Like, imagine how good that would be, or imagine how it would be with better pacing or better like enemy placement and like more thought put into that. I'm like, imagine what that game would be. Yeah.
Okay, I've got one more to read. So Yahtzee from The Escapist commends the game for showing exactly what can be done when you flaunt all established convention and just start exploring what can really be done with gaming as an art form, which I feel like is giving it a little bit too much credit, but it's still...
Yeah, it's just shocking that he liked a game.
Yeah. It's hard, isn't it? It's like, what you've said about the sexism is not wrong by any means. You are 100% right, and it is disgusting and it is gross.
And continuous. It's not like,
there was
that one scene that like...
Yeah. It's like
it's
pretty heavy throughout. There's not really any defense for that, is there?
No, but I think we're... we can look... We're not going to just say like, oh, because it has that... It's just bad game, it's awful. We're going to look at it as a whole... We're not going to justify it by saying it's of its time or of a different culture to us, because these things can't be justified. But we can, as we say, look at it as a whole, and we can look at the good and bad points like we do every game. And we're not here to cancel Killer7, but we can.
It's uncancelable.
Yeah,
so unpopular, you can't cancel it.
Yeah. Oh no, they're gonna have to take it off the store shelves and stop selling the thousands of copies that they have been doing. Yeah, like, we're not here to do that, but like, we can say like, yeah, look at what this is, and then hopefully say, and look how we're getting better and we're progressing. Like, that's always the kind of viewpoint I take on these things. Is we don't. If you wipe it from history, like, it's just going to come back, and I feel like we can say, oh, it like these parts of the game, are very old-fashioned and were gross at the time and are still gross. But that isn't. But the sound designer who was doing these awesome sound effects had nothing to do with that, and we can still celebrate the work that they did, and the concept artists that were kind of coming up with these characters and these environments. Like, they weren't anything to do with that, and they did amazing work. Like, we can still celebrate all of the awesome stuff that the game has.
Yeah. I've also got a good question from someone in the community.
Yeah.
So it might be a tall order, but Soom Yes wrote in and said, "Can you describe this game in 5 words?" I thought that'd be quite fun.
Okay, does it have to be like a sentence of 5 words?
No,
or
just 5 words that you think sum up.
Okay.
This game.
It's going to sound like super uncool, but like cool. Like, it just has to be violence. Blood is a constant. Blood is like everywhere, and then like that's your currency, like for like leveling up and to heal and everything. Politics or political.
Yeah.
And I don't know, something boring like guns. Guns.
And it's got guns in it.
Go on then.
I was thinking like Lynch, Kojima.
You sticking with directors?
Yeah, that was like, I don't know who would come after that. Lynch, Kojima,
Tarantino, you mentioned earlier.
Tarantino, Cosmic, Thriller. That's probably how I would describe it in 5 words, which is quite a tall order, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you tell I only had 3 of those words before I came in?
Yeah. Because you said,
I had cosmic.
Let me just try and think of some off the cuff. Let me try just reading it all off. I mean, we've struggled to sum up this game in like almost an hour of talking. Like 5 words isn't enough. Were there any more questions or just comments from the community?
Lord of the Freshwater on YouTube said, do you feel the game hasn't been appreciated or talked about enough through the years, or that it isn't good enough that it deserves to be? I kind of feel like it's exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah,
it's
it
not
comes
for
up.
everyone.
You hear it mentioned. It's not forgotten. They got a remaster.
Yeah, but no one's going on about it. It's not The Last of Us. It's not Horizon.
No.
It's never going to be. And I think they knew it never would be.
Yeah, it's a curiosity. For people that might seek it. I don't think we really need to go into the ending. I think maybe just leave that in case people are going to play it themselves, unless there's a point you really want to make about it.
No, I think we kind of covered it enough.
Yeah, I think it's I
thought it was good. I like the ending. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, no, I think it was cool, but I feel like we'd need to explain too much to then explain away the ending.
Yeah.
So I feel like, it's not like The Last of Us. We can't just talk about it. But yeah, should we put it on the list?
Let's put it on the list.
Okay, then. So this is going to be the 19th game that we are going to be placing on the list. Do you want to kind of hover over where you kind of think you want it to belong?
Yeah. So first of all, if you're watching video, it's a new look list. So I hope you're enjoying it. If you're watching audio, it's exactly the same as it always is. So for me, I personally would put this game in the top 5 that we've done.
Top 5?
Top 5.
Oh, okay. Oh,
because
no.
I'm like, what I've learning about myself is that I really respect an unwavering decision, and this game is full of them. Like, the things that I like are by people that have gone, I've got this artistic vision and you're getting it, and if you don't like it, I don't care. And this game is that all over. So for me, I was like, after I finished it, I was genuinely like, that's one of the best games I've ever played. Especially this version. I didn't think that before when it was on PS2, but this version, with like the snappiness of it all, I was like, this is just unbelievable.
Does the fact that like we're playing so when obviously the original came out, it had that loading.
Yeah.
Like, does it matter that wasn't like, I don't say part of the vision? It's not like they were sitting there going like, oh, add 2 more seconds to the loading, but it was made in the knowledge that they're loading it off a spinning disc into like the PlayStation 2 or GameCube's RAM, and it's gonna be slow. Like, is it almost like, not maybe it doesn't matter, like, is it like luck that it ended up as good as it would be because it helped it so much? Yeah,
but also the same thing on that unwavering decision is like, if they were like, if you take this out, it'll load faster, he's probably like, no. We're not taking anything out, it has to be as it is.
But like every game loaded like that. Like every game loaded at that speed, and he knew what he was doing with the way the world's split up and going into every single room and stuff like that. It almost feels like bad design that it was so slow and it's been saved by the remaster.
Do you know what? That's fine, because I played the remaster and I absolutely loved it.
I'm saying, doesn't matter. I guess we could just say we're putting Killer7 remaster on the list rather than Killer7.
Yeah.
We don't need to add a qualifier.
Well, I've already sent you the little, the little title thing we use for this. It's up there somewhere on the video version, and I've put PC 2018, PS2, GameCube 2005, and I'm talking about 2018.
Yeah. No, I was only kind of almost playing devil's advocate. I wasn't genuinely saying that should matter. It's way lower for me, I'm afraid, Ollie. Like, it's like there's a version of this game that I love. Like all of like everything that you said about what you like about a game in terms of that uncompromising vision. Like I agree with that, but like also I'm spending hours and hours playing through it, and I feel like like a version of it where with trimmed dialogue where you can skip through the voices, like decent puzzles, not even good puzzles, decent puzzles that aren't like insulting to me, and better enemy placements and probably some better enemy designs. Like they're constantly introducing new enemies. We didn't really speak about it, and so many of them are just the same. It doesn't even really matter. Like, it's just you just shoot them or shoot like the glowy point or the big head or the big hand or the whatever. Like, it's Like, there's a version of this game which I think is a top 5 for me, but I think, you know, that and plus everything that we said earlier that I don't need to kind of rehash about representation in the game and how poor it is.
They can't knock it down that much if it's that close.
No, I'm saying there's a whole nother version which has been like, you know, someone's taken this game and like there's a mod of this game where they've redone everything, not added any new content, but just shifted it around.
Oh, actually,
the
additional content. I played the additional mode. Did you play it?
Oh, well, Killer 8.
Killer 8. So there's 2 additional modes. It's Killer 8 and Hopper 7.
Okay.
So Killer 8, just very quickly, it's the same game, but it's on Bloodbath difficulty, which is super difficult, and you get young Harmon as one of your personalities. He's got a Tommy gun, which is super powerful. And then Hopper 7 is exactly the same game, but all the smiles are replaced with giant grasshoppers. Which I thought was quite funny. So yeah, those 2 additional modes.
Yeah, no, I looked up because I saw Killer 8 pop up, and I was like, oh, I saw it was starting the game again, so I just looked up what it was, so I in case it was a whole giant thing. I'm glad it wasn't, because I was playing it last night and I would have panicked. I wouldn't have had time to finish it. Yeah. Right, for me, I'm around 11, 12, like, which is Halo Infinite and Ratchet and Clank. That's the zone I'm looking at.
Okay, so I'll put it down there so you can zoom in. Say around here.
Yeah, that's the kind of area. Definitely above World of Warcraft. It gets a bit weird with World of Warcraft because it's kind of higher than I'd put it, but it's in that area. Definitely not above Warcraft 2. To be honest, I think I'd probably put it between Halo Infinite and Ratchet and Clank. So it would be 12 and push Ratchet and Clank down to 13.
Oh, for me, obviously, it has to go above Halo Infinite.
Everything like doesn't it?
A brave, unwavering, unbelievable game that could only have come out in the circumstances it did versus Halo, which there's like 30 of them. And they're all pretty much the same. Yeah,
but Halo Infinite's fun. And to be fair, your constant argument of, well, have you been playing it? Well, when last have you played it? I have actually been playing it recently. So I checked out the new map. And I don't really like it, but I enjoy playing the other map. But I enjoy playing the other maps I did like for a while, and I played several nights in a row. So
I think for the sake of artistic integrity, we have to put it higher than Halo.
Yeah,
someone took a chance and did something you've never seen before and will never see again, and we'd be like, it's not as good as Halo. We can't be like.
Yeah, okay. We're gonna let's get it. Let's say it's a top. Oh no, we can't commit to top 10 because it would be 11 at Halo.
I'm thinking it's top 10, definitely. For me, it might even be top 3. So you said it would be top 5. Yeah.
Where would you put if you were free choice? Forgetting anything I've said, where would it look right to
I
you?
would put it probably between The Last of Us and Doom.
Okay.
I feel like it's. You know, we said like Doom, every game is just a Doom, new version of Doom. This one isn't. So like, it gets that. It's like after 22 years, after 12 years, they managed to make something new.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like nothing you've ever seen and probably will never see ever again.
Killer7's never heard of Doom. Killer7's like, oh, another game did a shooting game. How did they do it? Oh, that's interesting. Like, the way they did it.
Yeah. So that's where I would put it, because I was like, when I was playing it, I was like, I feel like this game is made perfectly for me. I was like, everything about it, except for obviously the sexism, everything appeals to me, like really appeals to me. So, and also, I feel like the original game hit at a time where I was like very impressionable, and I think quite a lot of the interests I have now are because of this game. So, which I didn't really realize at the time, but playing it this time, I was like, oh, I like everything about it. It's probably because it actually sculpted the things I like.
Yeah,
so,
it shaped you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where I would put it. I mean, look at Driver San Francisco and look at Killer7 and tell me that. Well, no,
I was just looking at Driving San Francisco, and I was thinking that's like my wall, because I'm thinking of how much fun I had with it.
Yeah,
and like Killer7 I enjoyed, but it's just too many flaws, and the fact, and also like I know I did the remaster and I was able to remap the controls, but it took me ages of going back through them to try and work out, because I'd be like, oh, obviously I need to aim with the right analog stick. Obviously, I can't aim with the left analog stick. Like all of my years of muscle memory, every game you aim with the right analog stick. And then I was like, oh, but then that changes the movement and this changes this. Like, and I think back to what the original game was, and just how awful that must be to control, where you're like
the original
running
game,
and shooting with X.
I don't know if it was in the remaster, but in the original game you reloaded with the right stick. I don't know if that was the case. You just flick the stick and it would reload.
For me, I ended up setting it to right bumper. I can't remember where it originally was. Maybe. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? I think that is right. Because I think I kept trying to push the button down to reload and it wasn't working.
No. I think I don't want to give him too much credit, but I think the idea of the motion was you're flicking, you flick the stick to the side, so you're flicking the gun. That's what I'm assuming. Yeah.
I mean, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the game was unbelievable, and it definitely has its flaws, and it definitely isn't for everyone. And I would recommend it, but only to a very certain type of person.
Yeah. Is it? Would you feel like you recommend it, but you're like, don't judge me though, like enjoy it, but don't judge.
No. I feel like the person I'd recommend it to is the person that's like a bit hipstery, like something that's a bit different. Like the game knows it's different. It goes for it. Like the thing with the controls, the director was like, "Oh, we just wanted to put something that would like knock people off their feet to make them uncomfortable the whole time." And it's like, you're not actually servicing anyone by doing that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm like, everything you're saying, like, I'm the guy that you would recommend this to.
Yeah,
and you know, I did enjoy my time with it. It wasn't awful, and like I loved like the tone and the theme, like the sound design, like you said, the art, like. It could have been made today and just released, you know, the remastered version at least, like all of that stuff. But it's kind of almost like what you were saying for some past games. Like I had to play it for hours and hours, and the kind of the confusing like level layout, the constant like just stopping and just talking to you about stuff completely unrelated to what's going on. And I'm sure, you know, there's some deep meaning to everything they're saying, but at some point I just want to like play this game and just do the fun parts of the game and like explore these levels and like shoot these enemies and progress. But I feel like the game was tripping over its own artistic value and it derailed the fun by going too hard on that stuff, where there was a balance there. You can clearly see there's a way where they could have had both. They could have had everything that you loved about it and amazing gameplay, and I think they didn't hit the landing, and it hurt it.
You are exactly the person that I would recommend this game to, but only because we've somehow made it through the whole podcast. I was really dreading you were going to say it, but one of my pet peeves is when you watch something or play a game like this and someone goes, "Ooh, what was he smoking when he made this?" And it's like, it's like, okay, this guy's trying to tell us something, and like you're literally just throwing it back in his face by being like that. So
it's not the standard normal thing everyone else is doing, but that's okay. People can experiment and try weird things.
And it is a lot easier to follow what's going on now I'm older, I have to admit. When I was a kid, I had no idea what was happening in this game.
And the strangeness of it is entertaining as well. Like it's, because there's a lot of stuff, it's like it's not outright funny, but it's just straight, like it just kind of makes you smile because it's different. I mean, there are a few bits. There's the bit in the school where you do like a puzzle or something, and then like the doors slide open, and then it's like Travis on the exercise machine.
I probably laughed at that.
And then he's like, "Meet me here," and he like gives you like this number, and it's like a locker.
And he's like,
the locker, and he's like, and I'm like, this is great. Like there's stuff like that is great, but I feel like it just needed to be those moments and not the 100 other moments where he's just standing there in a t-shirt, just like blaming on about like something. Oh, in this place, blah 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 blah, and it's so slow because you can't skip through it, and like it just made me like it stopped me engaging in the story because I was skipping not the cutscenes but that dialogue. But like it pushed me away from that stuff.
I feel like the true sequel to this game, and a game you would really enjoy, would probably be No More Heroes 3, because that only came out last year. It doesn't have the weird sexist edge because it would have got called out for it because it was so new.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of the similar character, like a lot of the stuff in these games crossover, like ISZK, the brand, which is like everything is like a big part of No More Heroes. No More Heroes character is an assassin called Travis.
Yeah.
Who looks like that. Like, so a lot of people say it's the same guy. Like, I feel like that could be, the one that, because it also has the same kind of weird storytelling that's like you're not too sure what's happening, but you're kind of following it. Yeah. Anyway,
maybe that would be the one, and I'd let it get up that high. Yeah. I mean, I'd love a sequel to it. I'd love a sequel made today, and to see what they could do with it. Or just, as I said, like a director's cut of it. But
yeah, so the director said that he thinks this is the best game he ever made, but I've got a feeling that's because they just left him alone. Of course, he thinks his Pure Vision is the best thing he's ever made.
Yeah, of course. I feel there needed to be some people around him just to kind of not even like guide him, but just to edit, just to say, like think how necessary is everything, and like it feels like it's so much of it's one person pushing their views through a wealth of just different characters, but they all kind of are written very similar.
They're all
and you go, because you don't talk, and they just do a little speech at you. And I got bored of that.
And a lot of the main crew, the Killer7, they don't really have motives. They're just paid killers. And because they're like a fractured part of a personality, I don't think we even mentioned that.
Yeah. There's a lot
they
to
basically,
go over.
Yeah. Like, they don't really have their own motivations. There's a few characters that are to do with them in the game, but they're mostly just a vehicle for you to ride down this track and see what's going to happen. Anyway, what were we saying?
So let's say because you're saying like top 3 or top 4, like I'll give you top 10. So let's say we're looking at top 10. It's beat Warcraft 2. Okay?
Yeah.
It's got a free pass. So Warcraft 2 is now at 11. So let's just say for now it's at 10, which is one under Driver San Francisco.
Yeah.
Like, would you sleep tonight?
I feel like it needs to be 7.
No, you're as bad as him. You can't, just because it's 7. We can't soil the sanctity of this list. Wait a minute. Does that mean Halo needs to be at every point in the list?
Yes, including 30th. Yeah. I feel like it needs to be above
Last of
Driver.
Us needs to go at the end as well. Sorry.
What does sorry?
So does that mean Last of Us needs to go at the end?
Yeah, Zero Ranger needs to go above 1.
Sorry, I'm done.
I feel like it needs to go above Driver San Francisco, maybe above Forgotten City, but not above Undertale. Because Undertale is doing very much the same thing, and it does it much better. So.
Oh yeah, Driver San Francisco they had a vision for a thing they wanted to make, and they absolutely nailed it in every regard. They
that is true.
Like that was a big team came together with either a great director or a great shared vision, and they set out to make a game, and they basically did it flawlessly. And it's just how much do you like what they did?
How about Driver 8, Killer7 9, Forgotten City 10, and then move everything else down? Because the longer I look back on Forgotten City, the more I'm like, it wasn't that good.
No, I still have Forgotten City over Driver San Francisco. You keep coming back to the Forgotten City. I feel like you're forgetting how great that game was.
Yeah, was it? Or was it just a bunch of fetch quests in a row? 5 fetch quests.
Oh, the time manipulation stuff was cool. I also feel like I did more of the endings and I played more of it, and like there's some moments where like what's going to happen, and there's like the annoying characters, and you can like they're trying to trap you, and you can like play a little ploy, and they're like, oh, you got to get that. Remember that you got to get like that bow, and then he's going to trap you, and then you reset, and you still at the bow, and he's like, you got to get the bow, and you're like, I've got the bow. And he's like, though there's a lot of time loop games within like the last few years. And that's been and I'm put off by time loop games. Like I played the Outer Wilds, which is a heavily requested game, and it would have been in every way my kind of game, but I got too stressed by the time loop. I knew I'd be wanting to explore, and even though it probably did give me enough time, I'd always have in the back of my head, I've got to rush because I'm going to get reset, and I couldn't get over that mental barrier. The Forgotten City, I'd never once had that, and I never had frustrating. I never had like, what do I do? Or like, oh, I've got to do this again to set this up. It's not the deepest game, but it streamlines that mechanic, and it's my favorite one of them that I've done. Up there with like Majora's Mask, maybe.
Okay, so can it go above Driver, but below the Forgotten City? We're always doing underrated, weird games on this show, and if we get the most underrated and weird one out there, we put it near the bottom, then what are we doing?
It's like top 10. It's already higher up than I wanted it. I can't put it above Driver. Like, even though like I'm way more into like story shooting games than like driving game. Like, I'm not huge. Like, I play a bit of like Forza mainly to see how good the graphics are every year.
Yeah, same.
That, and I played Burnout back in the day. Apart from that, I don't really play any like driving games. And the fact that Driver made me love a driving game, and it's like,
that's true,
and it's not like I get your argument compared to like Halo Infinite or like something like that, but Driver wasn't playing it safe. And if anything, it's more impressive because it was like Ubisoft in their peak of playing it safe, and they took a weird risk on an established successful IP, and they've got to do something mad as a crazy one-off.
That's true.
They pulled it off. They pulled it off.
They did pull it off. Yeah, they did pull it off. You're convincing me to put Driver higher. Okay, well, how about for this week then? We'll just knock Warcraft 2 out, the top 10.
Yeah.
And Killer7 can go at number 10. How about that? I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? Because Warcraft 2 was another really fun game, but I feel like they also didn't quite pull off what they were going for. And Killer7's more interesting than Warcraft 2. Like,
and Warcraft 2's been superseded. Like, Warcraft 3 is just better.
Exactly, yeah. And nothing's done that to Killer7. I mean, arguably no more heroes, but the gameplay is so different that it doesn't really count.
Yeah.
It's the most unique game on the list. We didn't really mention it much, but we both have nostalgia for it as well.
Yeah. I feel like it's quite a big part of me growing up was this crazy game that like I would show people when they would ask what was wrong with me. So,
did you play it multiple times?
As a kid, I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I played through it probably 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, so I think that's why you remember, because I only played through it once. And so I had quite a soft memory, but like every level, and especially like every boss, I was like, oh, yeah, like it was like the whole way through it was like some weird deja vu dream I was walking through, and I was like, oh yeah, this thing. But then other sections where I was like, yeah, this completely left my brain. There's none of it. Like the whole,
I had one bit like that, but I can't remember what level it was. But I was like, I have no memory of this happening.
The whole level where you're in like the really sunny place, the handsome,
the Dominican Republic.
Yeah. When that whole level of that whole style and stuff, the guy at the beginning with the guitar, that was all just left my brain for some reason. Maybe I just didn't like that level. I just completely forgot it.
I don't really like that level either, to be fair. So
yeah.
Okay, so we're happy then. 10.
Yeah, no, I feel fine with that actually. You know what? I even think that your passion. No. But your passion and your argument about it is unique and it is different and interesting. Maybe Killer7 kind of being there, just nice. Forgetting like if this was my own list, I don't know if I wouldn't rush to even move it down, to be honest.
Yeah. Would you recommend it?
Like to very specific people. There's I would recommend it, but I'd like talk at them for a bit and give them an idea of what they're in for.
Yeah.
Not spoiling it, but even just the game, like the fun side of it, the gameplay side of it, I'd let them know that, don't go into this thinking it's going to be like Vanquish or anything.
Yeah. No, it's like, I don't know. I just think of it as being like, it's like a game that's been broken down to pieces and then rebuilt in the most extreme way possible. It's like all things that you recognize, but none of them work how you think they're going to work.
Yeah. Oh, we should do Vanquish.
I've never played it.
You never played it? Oh man, maybe next year. Maybe we'll have to throw that on the list. That is the game I'd recommend to
Isn't
you.
That's by Shinji Mikami, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
That's by the guy that he is one of the producers for Killer7.
Oh really?
I think he also he's also the director of Resident Evil 4.
Oh, okay, then is he part of Bayonetta? Is that the same lineage or
yeah, so no. Some of the people are the same, but Shinji Mikami is like a producer.
Okay.
So he worked on Resident Evil, he did this. He did what's that one called? Shadows the Damned? I think you played that. Same director.
That's another Suda 51, isn't it? With
that one's the sexism in that one is unbelievable.
Like the bone gun or whatever it's called.
It's ridiculous. But yeah, so I think it's him as well. He's kind of everything he touches seems to turn out pretty good. So
yeah. Yeah, I really think that's probably why I thought of the game. Maybe it's just in the back of my head somewhere or similar tone. But yeah, I loved that game back in the day. Anyway, we're getting off topic. So Killer7, well done. You made top 10. You had to fight your way there and kill a few lower entries in order to get your place. But as we always say, this is a live list. It may move down, it may move up in the future. We'll see how it goes. Speaking of the future, we kind of hard committed to a few games that we're going to be doing. If you want to, if you're listening to this as it was released, play through them so you don't get spoiled by the podcast and want to be part of the conversation, you can.
Do you want me to read them out and then you can hold your hand up when you want me to stop?
I feel like we're pretty committed to a point up into the big game, the game that's going to take a long time to play.
Oh, okay. Maybe
Maybe read up to there.
Okay, so next time we've got Enslaved, which is on Xbox, backwards compatible, and it's on PC. Then we got The Last of Us 2 with a guest. Then we're doing Beginner's Guide. And because that's really short, we're going to be doing Death Stranding as well. So maybe another unwavering artistic vision. But that one's 4 times the length of this one.
we could, I think, maybe just do one more game to mention, because I chat to them yesterday and they're definitely free and good because there's another guest. Yeah.
Okay, so we have another, known guest, I suppose. And they've picked Yoshi's Island. So that's also going to be good. I've actually finished that before. Have you played it before?
I've played it, but the first level, I played it on the SNES Mini just because I was going through the games. So I will play through on that. But yeah, maybe, this is a very, for that guest, feel free to have a guess for who it will be, because the game, it's someone who you might assume would pick that game in a way. So yeah, maybe that's a very light clue. Feel free to guess in the comments. We won't let you know if you're right or not, but
no.
Feel free to speculate.
That's also available on the Switch if you've got Switch Online. You get it free. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, plenty of time. We have many games to get through until we get to there. Any other housekeeping you want to mention before we say goodbye?
Well, I'm wearing one of our t-shirts, which, we're selling quite a lot of them. We're really grateful. If you don't want to be like me and you want to be cool, then you can pick one up. The link somewhere, you can find it. What else have we got going on? Got a one-off video coming on Monday.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting. Something that's currently on trend, but I'm not going to spoil what it is. And yeah, every other Friday, best of 3 or one of these. And that's it. Oh, and we're on Twitch, but it's already happened by the time you're hearing this.
Yeah, but we have a Twitch account now. Yeah. Basically, thanks to everyone watching and for buying merchandise. With that money, we were able to buy Ollie and Elgato. So we can now both stream, which we couldn't in the past. So now if we're streaming co-op things or things with multiple views, we're going to be able to do that. And that's just directly because of you. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much. Really grateful. And also means that if I ever want to stream any of the games that are coming up, I can do it on that channel and not get in the way of the bonus point stuff. Well, it's still bonus point stuff, but not get in the way of the YouTube channel. So yeah. So feel free to check that out. There's links to all this stuff everywhere. You're already in the right place if you want to find that. But apart from that, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed it and found it interesting. I did. Thanks for chatting with me, Ollie. It was good. Oh, me too. I'm glad. I feel like it went as good as it could go. Considering what we were dealing with, it went as good as it could go.
It was always going to be a tricky one. I was a little bit nervous about going into it, but I think hopefully we did the game justice for fans of the game, and hopefully we kind of gave you a pretty good idea of what this game is if you haven't heard of it. And thanks for picking it for the list, Ollie. I enjoyed kind of going back and reliving it. Thank you all so much for listening to this podcast, and we'll see you all in the next one. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.